I'm about to lay it down. So for all of you who are sitting around doing nothing, get ready for this. 5T in the 90s. I was born in 1983, and coming up, I was living in Fairfield when I first moved from New Zealand, and then I moved to Mount Druitt. And as I was growing up as a kid, I always heard this gang 5T, and my mum used to always talk about it. Like, funny enough, my mum used to always talk about it, yeah? So 5T is the era before me, yeah? But even though they were the era before me, they were on the news pretty much every day. And their crew, like, ran everything. Like, from Fairfield, Candyvale, Cabramatta, Canley Heights, and Liverpool. But they also had boys in Bankstown, Chinatown. And, yeah, so the leader, his name was 5T. And I'm assuming that's why the media called their gang 5Ts, because all his boys that followed him, yeah, pretty much there was guys that were like Young Mup's boys, John's boys. Like, this is how like they name their crews. But that's the era before mine, yeah? My era, there was Big Circle. These are Asian gangs I'm talking about. There was Big Circle, there was Red Dragon, there was Seng Wah, there was 14K, and there was LTH. These were the 5 main gangs that I remember. LTH stood for Live to Honor. There would have been a few other gangs, but these are the main ones that I remember and that I grew up with, you know. And I never forget this crew PTC that had Johnny and Fong in it, but I'm pretty sure from when I was hanging out with the Asians, it's called brother or big brother, and so they used to call him John and Fong. Those were the 2 guys back then that were rolling in PTC, and then they had one Islander in their crew named Jamie, and their crew was tight and solid, you know. Also Sang, Ty, Jay, like these are all the boys that were rolling with them back then. Every single one of them ended up in prison, and the reason why I'm telling you guys these stories is because all of these guys changed their lives. These PTC boys, very, very dangerous boys. Yeah, there is like you had the 5T boys who were dangerous, but as soon as their leader, so he got out of prison and then he got executed. And then that's when the crew broke up, and then there was internal dramas, and then from all their boys, like they started up their own thing, and it just kept going downhill, downhill, and downhill. So that saying where everybody goes, you cut the head off the snake, and you'll have no more crew. Like, and it's true, you know. Like, I've seen so many leaders get cut down. And then after that, the crew fall apart. And this is one major point of why I bring up this stuff, you know, like all these youngsters who are going through gang-related stuff right now, they need to know these stories. Not just my story, but the stories of these guys who were 10 times worse than I was. You know, like my story is nothing compared to their story, because these guys had no care in the world. Like, this era was the era of when the Darwiches and Razaks were going to war, you know? Remember, guys, this era right now is the era of technology, yeah? So the era back then, in the 90s and early 2000s, you only had cameras if you had money, you know? And at your house. But because there was not much cameras anywhere, there was boys like, so what are they called? OBS, Original Bank Squad. A lot of Fijian, different nationalities that were pumping banks, yeah? And like, there was camera footage, but it was rubbish footage. And the reason why I'm bringing up all these gangs back in that day is because all these gangs fell apart. So to all you youngsters out there that are repping a gang, repping a hood, Just remember, these guys were 10 times more dangerous than me and 10 times more dangerous than you. And they fell apart, and they didn't just fall apart because of disloyalty and whatnot. There was, it was internal dramas, everybody fighting for the title, everyone wanting to be the king of the yard, and it's what brought down a generation of gangsters, like the gangs that I mentioned, like were big gangs. For example, Big Circle, they came around after 5T died out and they ripped it. They were on the news all over the place, and the things that they were doing were like stuff that you see on movies, When I was growing up, obviously, like these gangs, Seng Wah and 14K, they still exist today, but the real gangs are in their countries, like where they're from, Hong Kong, China, and whatnot. But obviously, the youngsters here started their own because they had family members who were in it, and yeah, every single one of them didn't last, and it was mostly due to internal dramas. And this is what I always say to all you youngsters out there, you just keep thinking, yeah, I'm going to go hard for my crew. I don't care about prison. I do time easy. Let's see you say that when you're sitting inside prison for 10 years, yeah? Like, I did 10 years for something I wasn't even a part of, just for being associated with this situation, yeah? And I spoke about this a couple of weeks ago, where I explained that I was charged with aggravated kidnapping with attempt to hold for ransom $1 million, yeah? And I explained how I had nothing to do with it. I went to pick up a brother who was a part of it, and then the police turned up, arrested both of us, and I ended up getting found guilty for it, yeah? And so to all the jury that was sitting on my trial, here I am right now, yeah? You found me guilty, but you were freaking wrong, all right? And I never forget the three ladies that were crying when I got found guilty. I know that they were shedding tears because over there, like in the jury room, it's a different world from inside the courthouse, But my legal representatives were rubbish. Obviously, I spoke about that 2 weeks ago, and all of that will be on YouTube, yeah? But let's get back to the gangs, the Asian gangs. They were so ruthless, not only on the outside, but also on the inside. Young Mup's boys, his name that was in prison when he walks in is Dave Nguyen, yeah? This guy, when I came to prison, his crew was running it, and had a little soldier named T. These are all the boys from my time. Tommy, like his frontline soldiers were like crazy, yeah? And if you guys didn't know the politics inside prison, it was Asians and Islanders together, and the Aboriginal boys and the Lebanese together. And this is how I saw it. The Asian boys, yes, they had their power. They brought in a lot of contraband and whatnot, but the Islanders were the ones with the strength. So the Asian boys would always like stick staunch with the Islanders because they were the strength. Lebanese boys, obviously, yes, they go hard as well. They don't care. But the Kuri boys had the numbers. So the Middle Eastern boys, or mostly the Lebanese boys, they were smart enough to align themselves with the Kuri boys. Why? Because they had the numbers. All right. Especially so when I was coming in, when I first come in, there was a young Asian guy. His name was what's his name? Harry Potter, and he was an Asian who had glasses, and he had hair like Harry Potter, yeah? So everyone used to call him Harry Potter. I don't know what his real name was, but I just remember a meeting happening between Young Mup's boys, and there was there was 5 boys inside prison at the time, but their crew had already broken up, yeah? And I remember this meeting on the table, and then Johnny, who was part of PTC, was on this table as well. And I'll never forget, while the meeting was happening, Johnny clocked him and then everybody like stood around him like, and I was like, whoa, this is prison. Like I couldn't believe it, you know. And like 2 seconds after the Asian boys went at Harry, like I don't know what he did wrong. The Islander boys went at this other guy with iced water bottles. So inside prison, there is no more freezers, yeah? And the reason why there's no more freezers is because boys used to freeze ice water bottles, put it inside a pillowcase, and then use it as a weapon. And when I seen these pillowcases getting whacked, yeah, like, I thought, oh, I wonder what's in that. Like, I didn't realize what it was. By the time the situation finished, they had stretched out the guy and handcuffed all the Islander boys. And that's when I saw like the ice water bottles around. I was like, oh, what the hell? And then that's when, it was 2002, sorry, that they moved all the freezers out of every prison. And then there was a situation that also occurred with the Asian boys with the weights. So we used to have free weights inside prison. And I always say this to boys inside prison, yeah. I always say, we are the only ones that stuff it up for ourselves. Like, when we get things taken off us, it's because of us, you know. So the free weights, it got taken off every inmate in every prison because of an incident that happened at Silverwater where the Asian boys used the free weights as weapons. Look, I'm not going to go into detail, but it was pretty bad, yeah. And like I said, that's how dangerous the Asians were. For all of you who go on YouTube and you see the brawl at Silverwater, where the Asians were doing fly kicks and the Koori boys were brawling with them, this is how it was. Like, I don't know how much more I can explain how violent it was back then, because a lot of young guys who go to prison now, or a lot of young guys that come out of prison will be like, that was nothing, you know, easy, done and dusted, you know. But they don't realize, like, they're doing time easy. Now you got an iPad, 10 o'clock at night, you can say goodnight to your family, say goodnight to your kids, but they still have to live the same prison that we were living back then, where you have to watch your back, you know. Obviously because of the dramas outside and the dramas inside. So, growing up in Fairfield, there was a lot of Seng Wah boys, and then I come to prison. Obviously, there's a lot of Seng Wah and 14K boys, yeah. And there was also another crew. They were called Khan's boys. This guy's name, whose name was Khan, very, very dangerous man. But he ended up in protection because of Yung Map's boys, yeah. There was big internal dramas, and it's something that is none of my business and no one else's business. But the only reason why I'm bringing this up is because these guys were ruthless, yeah? And all these youngsters that are running around now, like stabbing each other, shooting each other, man, all I gotta say to you guys is, I'm not trying to tell you what to do, yeah? But have a look at these guys' stories. They were like actual movies that you see when you watch Asian gang movies, yeah? These guys were the real deal. They did everything that you see on movies. I've seen it with my own eyes, yeah? Back then, school kids, when I was going to school at Fairvale High School, when I would go to Cabramatta, I couldn't even walk in Cabramatta without someone getting in my face all tatted up and saying, hey brother, 2 for 50, 2 for 50. And I was like, well, I didn't understand what they were saying. And they showed me these little white rock. I was like, nah, like, I don't want that. I didn't realize that these guys were selling drugs at the time, you know. And that's the thing, like, that era, it was in your face. It wasn't what's called behind closed doors. Like, police would be standing around when these Asian boys would be just walking and like just selling, and they didn't care. You know, like, that's how violent they were. Like, the authority were so intimidated by them, like they had to bring in extra police into Cabramatta, you know, because of all the dramas. And Asians, when they go at it, they always have sheaves in prison. But on the outside, when I was growing up, they always had machetes, you know, like, how can I put it? So, on the outside, as I grew up, the Asians were the ones that put these inside the hands of islanders, yeah? And the Lebanese boys, they were the ones that gave these to their generation. So pretty much, we don't know. Us islanders don't know nothing about these. Don't know nothing about organizing kidnappings and all that stuff. Us islanders, we're just naturally strong people, and a lot of islanders are known for being violent when they get drunk, and they're known for using their fist, yeah? But as soon as these went into islander hands, like, that's it. You know, like, you can see it for yourselves every day on the news, you know? And there was situations that I was in on the outside where 14K and Seng Wah just went at it. And this is when I was growing up as kids. And yeah, I've seen the brawls and stuff on YouTube of the younger generation going at it now. But when I see it, it's like stepping back and forth, like trying to do what they need to do, trying to throw punches, but everyone's like jumping. But there was nothing like that back then. Like, every time I was there during a situation, like, it was just clash, and everybody went home with blood all over their face. You know what I mean? It was bad. Like, like one of the heaviest crews back when the Asians were coming up was the Assyrian Kings in Fairfield. And then my generation, I remember there was a gang, a younger generation gang, they were called FBI, Fairfield Boys Impact. And then after them, during around about the same time, they created Last Hour. And the Last Hour boys were obviously as ruthless as you hear them. There's a story that I'm going to be telling with the Last Hour boys next week, because everyone keeps hitting me up about it. But one of the biggest things that happened during that era was the Assyrian gangs going at it with each other. That will be brought up next week. And the Asian gangs going at it with each other. Yeah? And a lot of Asian gangs like Seng Wah recruited a lot of islanders. And I remember back then, you know what, I'm not even going to mention his name. He's got a big name in the islander community, but he ended up in Seng Wah as well. And you all know that Nathan Patterson, yeah, the one who does the YouTube stuff. He was Seng Wah as well. When I met him, he was Seng Wah. You know? But inside prison, I'm gonna keep talking about the Asian gangs, yeah. The ones that were the heavies when I was coming up was Yung Mup, Dame Nguyen. You had Mango, you had Johnny, T, and Crazy Min, Hoi. They were in for double murder. I'm pretty sure, I think it was Hoi or Crazy Min was in for triple murder. But remember, when I'm saying these things, these guys, it was gang-related murders, like not innocent people. You know what I mean? Like, that's why I'm saying, like, the stuff that's going on today is nothing compared to what was happening in the past, and that's because the past gangs did not care. And then you had like boys like Guile, who was in the Asian yard as well, and Tang. They were all like running the yard when I was coming up, yeah. And Johnny Bandit. So there's a big story behind him, you know. So he was a juvenile when his inner circle got charged, and there was like a murder involved and whatnot. And the word came back that Johnny Bandit had snitched, yeah. And obviously he made a mistake because he was in juvie. But when he came to prison, he faced his mistakes. He didn't go to protection. Like, he was a juvenile, and me, myself, I'm not the type of person to try to help someone get away from their mistakes when they're living the gang life. No. But I'll tell it how it is. Like, I'm explaining to you facts, yeah? When Johnny Bandit came to prison, he stood his ground and he said, I made a mistake. I was young and dumb. He goes, and all my boys were older boys, yeah? And he goes, I will cop whatever punishment you want to send my way. And I promise you guys, all the Asian gangsters that I saw inside prison, yeah, they were heavy, but they were always in a group. But you know Johnny Bandit? He was always by himself. This guy ran the ball up for all the Asians, yeah? Like, he didn't have to, but he was trying to get his respect back. He was trying to get his reputation back. Because obviously he was off his head, you know, like back then. And I remember when he came in, people were like whispering his name. Bro, I'm pretty sure he dogged in the boys. Pretty sure he dogged in the boys. But he never ever like took a backward step. He would go straight to people and he would tell them straight to their face, because you got something to say? Say it to my face. And everyone he confronted buckled, yeah? The reason why I'm bringing up Johnny Bandit's name is because I was there when the heavies were there for the Asians, yeah? But he was the young guy. He was my age. Me and him were together in juvie. And when he came in, he had big dramas with the Asian boys because of the snitching, yeah? But before he could bump into his coes to receive his punishment, he went from prison to prison to try to get to Goulburn so he could go get his punishment, you know? They wouldn't send him to Goulburn, so they kept sending him to different prisons that he shouldn't have been at. Like, Bathurst was a prison that Islander boys and Asian boys could not go to. The only Islanders that were allowed to go there was the Fijian boys, obviously because the fallout between the Islanders back then, yeah? And the ones that would get chopped on sight if they went there were the Vietnamese and the Samoans, Tongans, and Māori. Like, any Islander that rocked up there, they were getting hammered, you know? And a lot of Islanders did get hammered over there. But Johnny Bandit, when he went in there, he went straight into the main, not caring whether he got chopped or not. And the Koori boys actually gave him respect for that and said to him, you know what? Come, you can walk our yards. So a situation occurred when I was there, yeah? And it makes me laugh because all these little flops that were talking rubbish about me back then were saying, you were in protection, you were in protection. Oh, mate, if you weren't there, then shut the hell up. Right, these guys make me laugh, you know. Like, remember, back in the days was racial wars, yeah? So when you get to prisons where you're not supposed to be, they ask you whether you feel safe here or not, all right? I got to Bathurst, and I was supposed to go to Segura because I had already beat someone up, and I didn't get caught with contraband, but I got caught jumping over the fence at Oberon prison, yeah? Anyway, I got to Bathurst, and instead of putting me in segregation where I was supposed to go because I clocked someone, I woke up in the morning and I was in the main. I was like, thinking I was in segregation. I was hearing things. I was like, what the hell? And there's a little hole at your door, yeah? And I put my eye through this door, and when I looked, all I seen was a blackout. All the Koori boys were just walking past, and they were going downstairs into the yard. And I was like, bro, where the hell am I? So I climbed up, and I looked outside the bars. When I looked outside the bars, all I seen was just all the Koori boys walking back and forth. And I seen one Asian, and that was Johnny Bandit, and he was sitting by himself. He looked up at me, and he didn't say a word. This is how dangerous it was back then. Remember, if Johnny had said any words, he would have got by the Koori straight off the bat. But guess what he did? He looked at me, and he said this. Meaning, I got your back, and right now, I'm armed. So, when he said this to me, I said, sweet, I'll see you when I come down. All right? He said it without even, uttering any words. All right? So, I'm in my room, getting ready to go out because I knew I was about to get chopped because I'm an Islander, you know? There was a Fijian guy who was the head of all the Fijians. His name was Ray Johnson. All right? So, I'm very close with the Leslie brothers. I'm very close with the Fisher brothers. And so when I turned up to Bathurst, there was Fijian boys that were there, especially one old school one named Pate, you know, and Pate yelled out to me, Pete. I looked down from my cell. He goes, you all right? And I go, yeah, I'm good, like that. He goes, bro, I'm going to go talk to Ray Johnson to try to speak to the Koori boys, you know, that you're all right, you know, like you're young and to leave you alone. And I was like, yeah, all good, like whatever, you know. Anyway, but then the other Fijian boys went, and they went to speak to Ray Johnson. I was sitting there waiting, and then when they came back about 15 minutes later, they yelled out to me, and I looked down, and they're like, fuck, we're sorry, Tangane. Ray Johnson said that you're on your own. And I was like, yeah, nah, it's all good. I don't expect backup from no one, it's all good. But really, in my head, I was like, spill, now I'm going to have to fight everyone on my own, yeah? Anyway, when the officers came to my, to open up my door, they came and showed me a paper, and they were like, hey, would you like to sign this paper? This paper was a protection paper. It was called SMAP. And I said, what is it? And they were explaining to me, this is protection papers and whatnot. And I said, yeah, give it here. So I grabbed it off him, and I scrunched it. When I scrunched it, I threw it at the officer, yeah? And I said, get the F out of my face, and let me out into the yard. What I didn't realise is 3 of the Koori boys that I had issues with at Park Lee, one of them, during a one-on-one, I broke his jaw, yeah? They were there in Bathurst when I got there, and I didn't know this. And what happened was, these guys were talking on their phones, and they were telling their family members on the outside, watch what we're going to do, we're going to crush this bloke when he comes out. They were talking so much that Intel came to me and tried to get me to sign protection papers, and I refused to sign it. And because I refused to sign it, they have a duty of care, because they heard Intel on the phone that something was going to happen to me when I walked out. So after I chucked the rubbish at the officer, they went, and then they came back 20 minutes with handcuffs, and they said, hey, give us your hands. I said, what for? And they said, we're taking you out of here. I go to where? It goes to segregation. You can't be here due to threats to your life. This is where all these little idiots started like saying, he went to protection, he went to protection. You freaking idiots, you weren't even there. And now let me explain why Johnny's a badass man, yeah? So I got handcuffed, and then I went down to segregation. They took me, and Pate, the Fijian one, goes to me, Tangane, you all good? And I said, yeah, I'm all good. And then he said to me, the squad just told me what happened, and so I'm assuming that the squad had explained to him how the Koori boys who were my age were talking on the phone so much that they had to take me out for duty of care. And as I got into segregation, because Johnny kept talking to me and yelling out to me, I think the Koori boys got a bit upset at it, and then they tried to jump him. Mate, this is how much of a soldier Johnny Bandit was, yeah? He pulled out his 2 blades, and he took on all of them. From memory, there were 7 of them that tried to attack him, but then he ended up chasing them around in circles. And hey, I don't blame them from running. Like, when I saw the blades that he had, it was like this, so Johnny was ready for war. And when they were running around in circles, the squad had come out, and it was like pretty funny to the officers, because there was one guy chasing around 7 guys, and then he got segregated, and he got put right next door to me. And then that's when me and Johnny were like talking about what was going to happen when he bumps into his colleagues, and he goes, look, it is what it is, Pete. Like, when I bump into them, like, I'm going to just cop it, And I was thinking, I don't know how you could cop punishment from anyone. Like, yeah, even if you're in the wrong, like, I don't know. But at the time, I didn't know whether he was a dog or not, because there was like too many stories going around, and I hadn't seen any paperwork, So fast forward many, many years later, yeah, Johnny Bandit had to go to Windsor, and that's where his colleagues were, and a lot of the guys who were waiting to get him. So they had all moved from Goulburn out to other prisons, and all made their way over to Windsor. And when Johnny got there, all I can say is, mate, the bloke was a soldier, yeah? He walked straight to the wing where all his past friends were. And remember, Johnny was a juvenile when he made this mistake, yeah? But he faced his mistake like a man. I promise you, I haven't met a person like Johnny Bandit, since I was growing up, who has done this, yeah? He walked straight into the wing, and he put his hands up, like, I'm ready. And guess what happened? At Windsor, it was minimum security, so they had pool tables, yeah? These boys put pool balls inside socks, and they went to town on Johnny. Johnny, bro, I can't say any more about it, but it was very, very bad, you know. He never gave up any names. Obviously, like, he had to go to the clinic and whatnot. When they saw him at bus stop, like, he refused to leave. But they annihilated him. And guess what? He copped it like a man. And then his friends all turned around to him and said to him, "You are now forgiven and you can walk the main." So, to all you guys out there who are coming up in the gang world, just remember, like, what yous are going through now is nothing compared to what the boys were going through back then, you know? And I'm not saying this to put your gangster down. All I'm saying is that everything you guys are doing is going to lead up to yous being like us from back then. And you don't want to end up there. Trust me. Like, if you are going to go down this path, you better be ready for prison. Because I'm telling you, I promise you, every single person that is standing in front of you right now calling you a brother are all going to leave you with it. The only person that is going to turn up to visits is your parents. You know what? I'm going to give it to the Muslim boys who have sisters, yeah? I've seen a lot of Muslim sisters turn up every single week to visit their brothers. And I'm like, wow. Like, every time I see them, like, it's like love that you don't receive from anywhere else. You know, so a lot of people say there's a difference between saying "I love you" and saying "I'm in love with you." Yeah, but I remember reading somewhere a long time ago about a love that is so deep and meaningful that it is something like in the Bible. Yeah, obviously, like for the Christians, it will be Jesus Christ because he gave his life for humanity. You know, but when I see these Muslim sisters turning up every week, you know, I'm like shocked because I'm like, wow, they're not going out partying, they're not going out, with their girlfriends and having fun. They're turning up every weekend and visiting their brothers. You know, like, I could mention a lot of boys' names, but I don't want to embarrass their sisters, you know, but, you know, I give big respect to these girls, you know, who do the job when their parents can't. Because for those of yous who are living the gang life right now, please heed my warnings, yeah? You will be left with it. Your boys will walk away from you once you walk into the consequences of your actions. You know, I was lucky to have a good team beside me, but I'll say honestly, and I've also said this to my own boys, you know, when I did my 10 years, it was my parents that visit me every single week, you know, and when boys would visit me, guess who was bringing them to visit? It wasn't their boys, or it wasn't my other boys. It was my parents bringing my own boys to visit, you know. The only thing I'm going to say is my boys are so loving, so loyal, so reliable, so sincere that I can't ever put them down in a way that belittles them, because these guys fought hard for me, and I wouldn't be the man I am today if I didn't have these boys by my side as I was coming up in the gang world, yeah? Like, I was lucky to have them by my side, you know. We bled together, we fought together, you know. But this is why I tell my stories, is because when I was away from my most loving and caring brothers, I was with other boys who would call themselves my brothers, you know, and as soon as shit went to shit, they disappeared. You know? Let me tell you something. Females, when it comes to boys being incarcerated, are 10 times more loyal than your comrades. Mate, I've seen females who go above and beyond and out of their way for their men, and their men still treat them like rubbish, you know? And these women are not doing these things for money. They're doing it because they love their man, you know. And when I seen the loyalty from all these women, and yeah, I'm gonna speak on my wife who was also loyal, but she wasn't my wife or my girlfriend during my 10 years. Like, we were just friends, and it eventuated into a relationship, you know. She knew about the 9 girls that were like that I grew up with in school and who were helping me as well. And you know, like, I'll give a shout out to some of these girls, you know, like Phoebe and Evelyn, who stuck by me and helped me out when I needed it, you know. But my wife at the time, when she was young, she was a very innocent girl. She was 18, I was 22, and she was not allowed to leave her house. Yeah, she wasn't even allowed to speak to me, but she would always contact me because I had a mobile phone in prison. Like, that's what I was known for, you know. And our relationship, like, is what it is today because of the loyalty that my wife showed me back then. You know, like, she did more for me than anyone else. All right, and that's why when I talk about these hardcore gangs that are coming up, I just laugh at all these idiots that are on my comments that talk a lot of rubbish. Yeah, they sit there and they just talk so much rubbish on the comments. And mind you, it's only like 2 people out of the the thousands of people that watch my stuff. There's only like 2 that talk rubbish. Yeah, but it's beyond me how these guys can go above and beyond and out of their way to create a fake page and sit there at home like a vodka and just talk rubbish, yeah? Like, if they had put that effort into helping their parents or taking care of their kids or doing something with their life, you know, that would be somebody today. But guess what? Nah. They want to go and create a fake account and sit there at home and talk rubbish, not only to me, but to other people on social media. You know, this is what makes me laugh. You know, like, I'm here trying to send a message out to all the youngsters out there. Remember, boys, not only to the boys, but also to the girls who are hanging out in gangs as well, yeah? Remember, I am not trying to tell you what to do, yeah? All I'm doing is presenting my story and presenting some stories that I've heard from the past, yeah? And today's stories was all about the Asian gangs. And mind you, like, Johnny Bandit wasn't the only soldier. You had boys like Ta, you know, you had boys like T, Young Mup. Like, these guys were ruthless. And when I say ruthless, like, even if they were outnumbered, they went on with it, you know. The gangs back in my time, they didn't need numbers. They went on with it no matter what. It was a thing where where you didn't have a choice. You know, when you came, you had to stick hard with your nationality, and if you didn't, you were gonna get torn down. Anyway, that's my big chat today about Asian gangs and about what happened last week. I'm gonna shut this down here, but before I shut this down here, I want to give a big shout out to everyone that while I was, I also want to give my big love and respects to everyone who was sending through gifts. Like I always tell you guys, I don't want nothing from you. My goal is to share my story with the hope that you learn from it. And if you don't, it is what it is.